Good morning, Year 6, and welcome to Wednesday, the 3rd of February's literacy lesson. We are going to be kicking off our activities in literacy with a spelling activity. We're halfway through the week and we need to see just where we are and how many of our words off our word list we know how to spell. So, what I've done for you is I have got some spelling tiles, some Scrabble tiles, and I've muddled up 4 words from your list. So what you need to do is have a little look and you need to unscramble them and spell it correctly. So you'll need your purple book, you will need something to write with, you'll put the date and the learning question, can I spell my word list correctly? You'll also need to be able to see your word list. So either on Edshed or if you've written them in your purple book already. Okay, so once you've had a go at the 4 that I've set for you, and remember we're looking at the suffix shul and we're looking at the CIAL spelling of that, so that should help with this activity. When you've done that, you're going to try and test me 4 anagrams of your own. So choose another 4 words from your list and then you're going to scramble them up and see if I can work them out. So good luck, Year 6. Pause your video. Off you go with this activity. Okay. So now we've had a little look at our spelling, we're going to continue with our handwriting. Now, last week I introduced you to the new Cursive F style that we're doing, and you did a pretty good job of it. But just like me, I think we need to do a little bit of practice, a bit more practice, because practice makes perfect. So we're going to start with the F, okay? And we remember we lead in, we go into our loop, round, and into our loop at the bottom and round, ready to join the next letter. Here we go again, up into our loop, round, and then we go leading into the next letter. Now, luckily, this week we have got lots and lots of F's in our spelling list. And one in particular, official, has got 2 F's. So that is a real challenge today. So let's have a little look then how we do it. So we lead into our O, then into our first F, into our second F, then into our I-C-I-A-L. And once we've got to the end, we can then dot our I's. Let's try that again. Okay, so lead in, O, into our F, into our other F, I-C-I-A-L. Okay, so see how you get on with that one. Then we've got facial, so I'll move my board up a little bit. So we've only got 1 F in this and it's at the beginning, so that's nice. So we're going to lead into our F, round into the A, C, I, A, L. And remember the L needs to be as tall as your F. And when you finish, you can dot your I. Try again. Into our F, round into our A, C, I, A, L. And at the end, you can dot your I. Then we've got 2 rather large words. We've got beneficial and artificial. I'm going to just roll it up a little bit. I'm going to start here, beneficial. Okay, so lead into our B, round into our E, N, E, into our F, I, C, I, A, L. And a bit of a rubbish F there, Mrs. Heavey. So we're going to do that again. Right, here we go. Let's see if I can do better. B, E, N, E, into our F, I, C, I, A, L. That was better, wasn't it? Right, let's have a little look at the last word, artificial. So we lead into our A, R, T, I, into our F, I, C, I, A, L. Then we can dot and cross, and there's lots of dotting and crossing in that one. Okay, try again. A, R, T, I, into our F, I, A, C, L. And I think I was a bit too loopy on that F. So I'm going to just do one more because I think I can do better. Okay, let me move that down a little bit. Okay, let's try again. Get it right, Mrs. Heathing. So A, R, T, I, F. Oh, that was better. I, A, I, C, I, A, L. Okay, so A, R, T, I, F, I, C, I, A, L. Right, so underneath your spelling activity, you don't need to put the date. You're just going to leave a line. You're going to put, can I practice my handwriting? So we want 2 lines of F again, and then a line of 2 lines of official, 2 lines of facial, 2 lines of beneficial, and 2 lines of artificial. I think this is the one that we may need to look again at. All right, when we've got double Fs. So it may be that tomorrow, we'll see how we go, but I've got a feeling double Fs are going to feature in tomorrow's handwriting. Okay, right, pause the video, off you go. Well, hopefully we have got some fantastic spelling and beautiful handwriting. And now we're going to be thinking about our word work, okay, and our reading and comprehension. So, learning question today is, can I answer questions about a text? We're going to be looking at pages 26 and 27. And we've got a starter activity where we're going to be finding one word. Last week, when we had a similar activity, you were struggling a little bit to find a one word. Some of you were putting a phrase in or more than one word. It needs to be one word for each of these. So last week I was very kind and I gave you the initial letters of the words. Today, I'm going to get you to look through the text really carefully. Now, if you're looking through it carefully, you will be underlining words that you are not sure of. And probably the words that you underline are going to be the words that appear here, or at least some of them. I've not chosen all the ones that you could do. So, when you've read through your text really carefully and you've underlined those words you are not sure of, you can then have a little look at the questions here. Okay, so you've got to find one word which means became ill with. Number 2, find one word which means making people ill. Number 3, find one word which means identified. Number 4, find one word which means question. Number 5, find one word which means announced. And then finally, find one word which means serious. So became ill with, making people ill, identified, question, announced, serious. Now, you may need to use an online dictionary so that you can look at the words you've underlined and see if you can match them up with the definitions that have been the definitions that you've been given here. Okay. And do that. It's the way that you broaden your vocabulary. So you are going to put the learning question, can I answer questions about a text, underneath your beautiful Fs that you have just written. Okay, and you've got, you don't need to write the whole sentence out. All you need to do is put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in your margin and find me the words that I am looking for in your text. Okay, pause the video and off you go with your starter. Okay, Year 6, how did you get on? Let's have a little look then, shall we? So, the one word which means the same as became ill with, okay, that you should have been looking for the word contracted. Okay, contracted. Okay, doesn't want me to cross my T. Always let me know. Okay, so the next word that you are looking for, find one word which means the same as making people ill. Well, this was striking. Okay, it was talking about striking people down with an illness. So perhaps not a meaning of striking that you've thought of before. Okay. So then the next one, find one word which means identified. That is associated. Okay. Associated. Then you've got to find one word which means question, and that was query. Hopefully you spotted that. Then one word which means the same as announced. We're looking for the word proclaimed in that one. Okay, proclaimed. And then finally, one word which means the same as serious. And the word that you were looking for there was somber. Okay, oh, it's missed my joy in there. Okay, somber. So, became ill with, contracted, making people ill, striking. One word which means the same as identified was associated. Then question was query. Announced is proclaimed. And then serious was somber. Hopefully you've done really well with those. So we're going to have a little look now at the text. Okay, so I'm just going to do it, put it on the visualizer. If you've got it on the right page, then that is really helpful. So you're looking at page 26 in book 6 of your comprehension book. And the story is called, well, it's not a story, it's a piece of non-fiction actually. And it's autobiographical. It's about I Can Jump Puddles. So it's Alan Marshall, and what he's doing is telling you about how people reacted when he fell in. So we've got an autobiographical account of what happened when Alan Marshall fell ill with infantile paralysis, which is known as polio. We don't tend to get that as much nowadays, particularly in this country, but it was quite prevalent, when he was writing, when he was younger, sorry, okay, in the 1900s. So it was quite prevalent then because of disease and because of diet and sort of unsanitary conditions. So let's have a little look at the text then. We've identified lots of the words that will help us in the question. So you follow as I'm reading. So it said, I had not long started school when I contracted infantile paralysis. The epidemic that began in Victoria, so he's in Australia, so that's a city in Australia, in the early 1900s, moved into the country district, from the more populated areas, striking down children on isolated farms and in bush homes. So initially, it started off in sort of towns and where there was lots of people, but it developed so that it spread into the more rural areas. So these isolated farms, so where people, they're living, they don't have, the neighbours aren't close. Okay, so I was the only victim in Tarala. So, he was where he lived. He was the only person struck down with it. The people for miles around heard of my illness with a feeling of dread. So, I suppose it's a little bit like when you hear, oh, so-and-so has got coronavirus now. They get that sort of dread because it's got sort of, we know the possibilities of that. And lots of time people are okay. They just feel a little bit ill, but there could be some significant consequences of developing corona. So it's that kind of, that feeling of dread, that sort of sinking feeling that you think, oh no, I hope they're going to be okay. They associated, and we looked at that word, didn't we? Associated. Okay. Identified the word paralysis with idiocy. So they thought that because he wasn't able to move, that he must have something the matter with him in his brain, and so he wouldn't be able to learn how to walk and talk and do all of those things. Okay. So the query, have you heard, if his mind is affected, was asked from many a halted buggy, so people would stop his parents whenever they saw them, perhaps in the nearby town, and they said, have you heard, is his mind affected? So, is he not going to be able to develop along with his peers? And halted buggy, you've got in your glossary. For a few weeks, the neighbours drove quickly past our house, looking hurriedly with new interest at the old picket fence and the unbroken colts in the stockyard, and my tricycle lying on its side by the chaff house. So if you have a little look at your glossary, I'll just move it up a little bit so you can see it. Okay, with the buggy, yarn is a chat. and colts young male horses, and the chaff house is a farm building. Okay, so because it's Australian, they use different terms. So just to recap, the buggy is a horse-drawn carriage, not a vehicle, as we've said previously. It's a horse-drawn carriage. Okay, then yarn is a chat, colts young male horses, and chaff house is a farm building. Okay, right. So if we then have a little look at what it then continues to say. Okay. So, for a few weeks, the neighbours drove quickly past our house, looking hurriedly with new interest at the old picket fence as we've gone through. The unbroken colts in the stockyard, and my tricycle lying on its side by the chaff house. They called their children in earlier, wrapped them more warmly, and gazed at them anxiously when they coughed or sneezed. So they're terrified that something is going to happen to their own children, that they're going to develop this disease as well. So it hits you like a blow from God, said Mr. Carter the baker, who believed that this was so. He was the superintendent of the Bible class and proclaimed in his weekly announcements, so we looked at the word proclaimed, as he faced his pupils with a sombre look. So he is running Bible class, and he sort of feels like, you get the impression that he thinks he knows everything about this disease. Okay, and perhaps he doesn't. So next Sunday morning at Divine Service, the Reverend Walter Robertson, so Reverend Walter, Rev is short for Reverend, BA, so that tells you he's gone to university, he's a Bachelor of Honours, will offer prayers for the speedy recovery of this brave boy sorely stricken with a foul disease. If we have a look at your glossary, a foul says deadly, okay, deadly, a foul disease. So father, after hearing of these words, stood in the street one day tugging at his moustache. Okay, his sandy moustache, so it tells you he's red-haired, sandy, with a nervous, troubled hand. So he's sort of, he's really concerned about Alan, his son. So he's, well, he explained to Mr. Carter just how I happened to catch the disease. So he's talking to Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter, is the leader of the Bible class, and so he's had a conversation with him. So this is what Alan's dad says. They say you breathe the germ in. He said it's just floating about in the air everywhere. You never know where it is. It must have been just floating past his nose when he breathed in, and that was the end of him. He went down like a poleaxe steer. And again, if we have a little look at our glossary, okay, poleaxe is stunned, and a steer is a young bull. So a poleaxe steer, so a stunned young bull, perhaps it's had a fright or something's happened to it and it's flopped to the floor. So it's just that instant thing. Okay. If he'd been breathing out when that germ passed, he'd have been right. So that's what Alan's dad thinks. It's a germ floating in the air. Alan happened to be breathing in as the germ passed. If he'd have been breathing out, he wouldn't have got it. He paused, then added sadly, now you're praying for him. So he's, he can't believe that in a split second, Alan's life changed. Okay, that people are praying for him now because he's developed this terrible disease, polio. Okay, so it's an extract from I Can Jump Puddles. It's an autobiographical account by Alan Marshall. So if we have a look at the questions that you've got to answer today, and you're going to be answering all of the questions today. So you'll be looking at page 27. So question 1 says, which word could the author have used in line 5 instead of query? Okay, now we've had a little look at some word work to start off with. That'll help you for number 1. So which of the following words best describe the local community's response to Alan's illness? So is it happiness, anger, confusion, curiosity? Read the text through where it talks about the neighbours and how they go past the house now. If you're not sure of any of those words there that are on in question 2, then look them up in a dictionary or thesaurus, and then you'll be able to circle one of them. Okay, so use evidence from the text to explain your answer to part A. So if you've chosen the right bit, you need to then here, you need to say, I chose whichever word you've chosen because it says in the text, this means. So I want to see those phrases because it says in the text, this means. Okay, really important that we get into the habit of using those. Okay, so then, why do you think people wrap their children up more warmly while Alan was ill? It tells you the line to look at. Have a look at what goes on around that. And we did talk a little bit about that in the video. Okay, I imagine that your parents are treating you that little bit differently if you have to go to the shops with them. They might be making sure that you've got a mask, using hand sanitizer, and that's all because they don't want you to become ill. So think about, this. Why do you think that the parents, because it's polio with Alan Marshall, why do you think that the parents are acting like that? Then you've got to find a simile. Now, we've done lots of questions where we've got similes. Remember, we're looking for like or as. And then, do you think Alan's father felt optimistic or pessimistic about Alan's chances of recovery? So that last line is very telling, isn't it? Okay. Because it says, sorry if I'll lift it up a bit. If he'd been breathing out when that germ passed, he'd have been right. He paused and added sadly, now you're praying for him. So have a little look at this part here. Okay, how is he feeling? Optimistic means that you feel that everything's going to be okay. And pessimistic is when you think things aren't going to be okay. Nothing's ever going to be the same. So what do you think? By that line, he paused, then added sadly, now you're praying for him. Okay. He's already talked about the foul disease. Okay, so have a little look at that. Then we've got the last question. The title of Alan's book is I Can Jump Puddles. What does this title suggest about Alan's attitude towards his disability? Okay, so usually people who suffer from polio, they certainly wouldn't be able to jump puddles. Okay, it would be a long, long road to some sort of recovery. But I can jump puddles. It's got an idea of optimism, hasn't it, in that? So have a little think. I can jump puddles. Is he determined that he's going to be okay? And that, so what? I've got this disease. I had this disease when I was a child, but is it going to frame the rest of his life, or do you think he's going to be determined and do something about it? And perhaps find ways around some of the the consequences of him having polio. Perhaps he's going to find alternative ways of moving or doing things. Okay, so have a little look at that. Now it's a 2-marker, so I'm looking for some detail in that. I don't just want an answer that says, I think he's got a positive attitude. You need to say why. So you could say, I think he's got a positive attitude because he says, I can jump puddles. It means he's determined to be like every other child, and he's determined to do things that other children would do his age. Okay, so those kind of things I want detail because it's a 2-mark question. Okay, so you are going to be answering your questions on book 27, page 7, book 6. And then when you've done that, I'm just going to put the board back on. You've got a challenge. So we found a word to start off with. We found words, okay. Well, we're going to end up with a phrase. Now, remember, a phrase is 2 or more words, not more, usually 2 or 3 words in total, to be honest. You might get a few more words, but not many. And very often it doesn't contain a verb. Okay, so you're looking for 2 or 3 words that perhaps don't have a verb in them. Okay, so find a phrase which tells you that the disease spread from cities into the countryside. Now, if you were listening carefully at the beginning, you might have a clue where that is. So you might want to go back in the video and check what I said when we were looking through the text. Then find a phrase which tells you people were afraid of the disease. Okay, so there's more than one answer to that one. So have a little look, either one will do. And then find a phrase which tells you Mr. Carter expected everyone to attend the church service. Okay, so have a little look, find the section in the text where it talks about Mr. Carter, who's the superintendent of the Bible class, and then see if you can find the phrase. So 3 phrases to find once you've completed the questions on page 27 in your comprehension book. Good luck, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.